Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me your time.
Thank you. In my list, honorable senators, you can tune out to change it to the supplementary on the paper. Yes. And in my paper, supplementary on the paper, I can see also the senator for Ram County has two statements. And also the senator for nominated Senator Gloria Oroba. So we defer those two statements, or three statements by the two senators. Okay, let me give two members to make maybe 2 minute maybe remarks on this statement by Senator Onyonka. Senator Manzo.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, I had a pending matter, and I don't know whether I can address the House before clearing the matter. I had a pending matter yesterday. You remember there was a statement raised by Senator Cheregei, and it would not be proper for me, having been an experienced member, I am aware, before that matter is cleared, I cannot be able to address the House. There was an issue yesterday in relation to the Minister of Agriculture and the fake fertilizers, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, before I hand over...
you needed to substantiate?
Mr. Speaker, I was unable to meet the PS Agriculture this morning. I made an effort on the CS, and the answer I got from a telephone call to the CS was that he will call later, Mr. Speaker. So I did not collect the actual information, but the information I have, as a member, as a senator from Makueni, the information I have is the fake fertilizer receivers in Makueni County have never been compensated, Mr. Speaker.
So are you aware that you should substantiate now? Because this is
I'm aware of that fact, Mr. Speaker. I still stick with my position that the people of Makueni, they may have compensated other counties.
So
but the
are
people
you
of
stating about Makueni people, or you are seeking?
Yesterday, I indicated
lenience that you have not been able to get the materials to substantiate.
I am seeking the Speaker's lenience to be given more time so that I can access.
Then why are you not so
I can access the PS for agriculture and the CS
so for
valid information, Mr. Speaker.
For 1 more day?
Well, for 1 more day, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chalge.
The new commissioner should start working very fast. Mr. Speaker, I want to support the statement by Senator Richard Onyonka. Mr. Speaker, I think this is the correct process of querying. I think what I can say, the CBC issue is concern for all of us, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy that his kinsman, who is the CS Education, Migos, CS has said that by the end of this year, January, Mr. Speaker, 19,000 classrooms will be ready for grade 9. So, Speaker, and I want to advise Senator Onyonka to be consulting him because they are kinsmen. He doesn't need to bring it to the floor of the House. Yet the President has given them a Minister of Education. They can finish alone Keroga, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the point I wanted, that was on a light touch, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, continue. Minority Leader, Deputy Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, you should not allow Senator Cheregei to take that direction. That's why did you hear Senator Cheregei alluding, there can never be a light touch in a speech as important as the one that he's making. That the Minister for Education is first a Kisi and must be speaking to Kisis first before the Kisis can bring matters before this House, Mr. Speaker. What about those of us who have no cabinet secretaries that we can speak to? Who will address those national issues? CBC is not a Kisii issue. It's a national issue. And I'm very sure Senator Onyonka is not raising the matter on behalf of the people of Kisii.
Yes.
He's doing it for this country.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Dean. I think your statement is very much in order, because I think the CS education is a national leader. Is just there to represent every Kenyan. And Senator Chelagai, you are seasoned lawmaker in this house.
Mr.
But
Speaker,
the statements
you know,
you are
Senator,
making nowadays are very substantive. What is happening?
Mr. Speaker, you know, Senator Onyonga is a friend of mine. He was telling me they normally fly back together with the CS of education. And most of their conversation is in the local dialect. It was on a lighter touch, Mr. Speaker, but this is a serious and a substantive matter of national importance. I agree the issue of CBC is something that was born during Kibaki. Midwife now, it was born in Uru's time. President William Ruto is the one midwifing. And he's doing a good job in midwifing, Mr. Speaker. No one likes changes. Mr. Speaker, we are moving from into a competent space, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know nowadays, under 844 system, Mr. Speaker, even people who underwent 844 could not make tea. Just to mix chai, Mr. Speaker, the tea leaves and milk and water. We want to build a system where you are giving people life skills, Mr. Speaker. You need to ensure that the curriculum competence-based, where grade 9, Mr. Speaker, are transiting. The president in the state of the nation assured the nation
Senator
that
Chelagai,
by
just a
January,
minute. There is a point of order from Senator
I was
Ososi.
on fire, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ososi.
Mr. Speaker, I had put on the point of order to make a comment on Senator Mahanzo's issue of...
Now, maybe I'll give you time to make your comment on...
yeah, it's not very much related, but it's very substantial, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you are aware that I was asked to substantiate on the matter of Moi University. And I did substantiate in this House, provided all the evidence, and the Speaker ruled that he was going to issue a communication. Mr. Speaker, it's now getting into the third week. There is no communication on the ruling as to the evidence which I had provided on Moi University. Mr. Speaker, I want you to make a comment on that.
Senator
Now
Ososi.
that Senator Mahanzo was being pushed to substantiate under Standing Order number 105. What happened to my matter? Are we starting to deal with matters of this House administratively, or we are letting matters to be processed through this House, Mr. Speaker?
The matter you are raising, the communication from the Speaker is just between where I'm seated and the Speaker's office. So anytime that communication will be brought before this House. So, who is on the floor, Senator Karwale? And you know the procedures of points of order. Point of order or clarification you want? Yeah, just 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, the issue raised by the Senator of Vihiga is very important. The only window left to the chair on such a ruling is for him to come and inform the House that upon verifying the documents that were submitted, he was either convinced or not convinced that the matter had been substantiated. And Mr. Speaker, the people of Kakamega are keenly following because they want to hear whether the matter has been substantiated. The moment it is, the people of Kakamega are going to court to sue the Senate for throwing out the Senator of Kakamega on that day when the Senator of Kakamega, Mr. Speaker, was protecting his younger brother and protecting the integrity of this House, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni Karwale. I clearly see the communication is between the Speaker's office and where I'm seated. Anytime that communication will be blocked to this floor, I give a very clear guidance on this. So let's proceed. Senator Chalage, 1 minute to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I think we need to be, under your guidance, there should be point of relevancies. This is not somewhere in Avocolo where you are campaigning for Kakamega matters, Mr. Speaker. This is the House of National Importance. I mean, Mr. Speaker, those are irrelevancies, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chalage,
Mr. Speaker, this is not a bullfighting session. We are seriously conversing. No, I can't. Those are mundane issues, Mr. Speaker. You need to protect the integrity of this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion.
You're out of order. I can't see an intervention, and you know this House will not shout for points of order. You must
Mr.
catch
Speaker,
my eye through the...
But I'm waiting for the... Why you are asking me? No, can you
conclude
focus on what I'm saying?
Next.
Mr. Speaker, I think, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, and you know Senator Sifuna should be patient with us. I know the
Senator
elections
Chalage,
of
I don't
ODM
think you
may
have
be
any
stressing
other-
him, but Mr. Speaker, can you allow us to do our business here? Mr. Speaker, on the issue of CPC in conclusion, I want to support Senator Onyonga that the President assure the country that 16,000 classrooms will be ready for grade 9 in terms of transition on CPC, Mr. Speaker. As a House, we need to support the government in the rollout of CPC, Mr. Speaker. If anybody has a problem with CPC, bring policy or legislative intervention for the betterment of this country, Mr. Speaker. And that is the only way we will ensure this country moves forward in terms of education. Let us build skill and life-based, Mr. Speaker, so that our people can get value for education and quality education, not quantity education. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna Edwin.
Honorable Speaker, every day I continue to be a very proud SG of the ODM party, and especially the contribution of members of my party in discourse in this particular House. In fact, the statement by Senator Onyonka demonstrates that he understands that the issues to do with the curriculum-based, competence-based curriculum go beyond school infrastructure, and they go beyond issues of the teachers or the staffing of our classrooms. Honorable Speaker, this is the reason why in the morning today, I gave the President free advice that if there is anyone in this parliament that he needs to keep close, is a senator of Kisii, because he will guide him on some of these issues. Because you can see, Mr. Speaker, if you compare the statement that has been brought by the senator of Kisii and the President's address, it is clear that the senator of Kisii understands the depth of the issues that are bedeviling the CBC. The President took only 2 paragraphs to address the issue, and he only spoke about hiring extra teachers and building classrooms. The issue, as Onyonka has framed it, goes way beyond those 2 issues, Honorable Speaker. You will see that he has spoken about even measures in place to support parents. Here in Nairobi, many of our parents are complaining. Sometimes the kids come home with extremely complex assignments, and they also have an implication financially. You have to buy materials, parents are being asked to buy printers and so on and so forth. So I wish that on that flight that Honorable, the member of, the senator from Nandi was talking about, if we could swap positions so that the current CS becomes the senator and the senator for Kisii becomes the CS, I think the President will benefit from the wisdom more that is coming from the senator of Kisii than from the current CS. Honorable Speaker, this is why we want to make it clear, Honorable Speaker, that you should avail yourself as the executive of all the talent that is available for you in this country so that you are helped. Because you can see some of the pronouncements from Senator for Nandi. They are not even helpful to the head of state. And I said in the morning, I feel very bad because the head of state is supposed to be benefiting from some of the wisdom that comes from this floor. But unfortunately, you are just here to praise him and to clap when you can see clearly that he did not even go into in-depth analysis of the problems of the CPC. As I said yesterday, he himself framed the question, are our policies in the education sector working? He never answered the question. It is not about classrooms, it is not about teachers. It is these issues raised here, and I hope that we can invite members of the executive when the committee of education is dealing with Senator Onyonka's statement to also imbibe in the wisdom that is coming from Kisii and the ODM party. Honorable Chair, I thank you.
Senator David Wakoli.
Honorable Speaker, when I wanted to say something, you stopped me from saying it, Honorable Speaker. And someone said, I don't know how to use buttons, Honorable Speaker. But I want to concur with Honorable Nyonka that as a teacher by profession, the ministry and the curriculum being implemented as a big problem. There are big gaps based on policy implementation, the curriculum itself, the training of teachers, the funding of the program. And definitely, Honorable Speaker, if we don't step in the gap now, our whole generation is going to limp in the dark. And it is important to take what Honorable Nyonka is talking about seriously, because we will be judged by the product we produce at the end of the system. And as a teacher, it really pains me to be churning out students who are half-baked. They are not critical thinkers. They think in terms of regions. They have no sense of reality in them. And I want to correct my friend Cheregei by saying, I am an 844 product, Honorable Senator. And when you look at me, I am competent enough to milk my animals at home, to take care of my animals, to take care of my chicken, to make my own table and chairs, to spin my own pullover. And that tells you that all of us here are a product of 844. We are not here by fault or default. We are here by design. The system was efficient. That is why we are spewing wisdom and facts to this country. So allow us to shape the future and destiny of our children in the best way we know, and devoid of shenanigans and devoid. Yeah, noise making. And if this curriculum is going to entertain noise making, Honorable Speaker, then we'll rather go back to 844.
So, are you done? Senator
If the policy, and I want to repeat,
Senator
and I want to
Wakoli.
repeat, Honorable Speaker, these are signs of students who are
Senator
present
Chelegei,
by
order.
sight and
Senator
absent
Chelegei.
by ears. Honorable Speaker,
If
as
you
a
want to do
teacher,
any point
they
of
need
order,
to,
you know
he needs to
how
call
best to
both
do it.
parents so that we can guide these students. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 8, motion. Report of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 38 of 2024.
There is a motion and order number 8. We are resuming the debate which was interrupted in the morning. And Senator Richard Onyonka, you have 8 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity again to continue with the debate we are having this morning. We were basically discussing the mediated version of the revenue bill. Mr. Speaker, I had actually nearly finished my conversation, but there were about 3 points I wanted to raise. And I wanted to plead with my colleagues in this House. Mr. Speaker, this country is not poor. For all intents and purposes, if you look at the budget we have, it is actually a budget that can run itself. The amount of money that county governments are getting, if you look at the total amount for the last 10 years, from the auditor, the controller budgets reports, and the Auditor General, the amount has been about 1.6 trillion shillings that has gone to the villages, Mr. Speaker, presumably. But during this time, this is when, again, the disease that we suffer from as a people, where we consider that personal success is really the driver behind the change that we need in Africa, or when we continue to think that we need to solve the problems we have and we think outsiders are going to solve those problems for us. Mr. Speaker, the amount of money that governors have received in the last 10 years since the promulgation of the Constitution has been money that by now would actually have made Kenya a very successful, developed African country. The problem is the disease of stealing public money and the idea of getting friends to control the resources of this republic, and particularly the governors who have made it a habit of thinking that all Kenyans are stupid, and that is why they coordinate and organize their friends to do contracts, make sure that we have no medicines in the hospitals. Mr. Speaker, they come and fire all the technocrats that were employed by the previous regime, whether this technocrat was a good officer or not. And then they bring their friends and relatives who then control the money that they're going to steal. I think, Mr. Speaker, you know cases of how many of our friends who actually came from very poor backgrounds. Mr. Speaker, there are candidates who have run for governor who are basically people who came from very humble backgrounds. And you would think that individuals who've been exposed to this kind of life of denial, a life of rejection, would pick this country up and put it together and make sure that we spend the resources we are supposed to try and change the trajectory of where this country is going to. Mr. Speaker, what do? Of course, then we take everything. You find our hospitals don't have medicines. The roads are done poorly, because then we find, even as I speak, Mr. Speaker, like in my county, Kisii, it is the Chinese companies that are doing roads when the locals have nothing. And then when governors are being told to pay the pending bills, what do, Mr. Speaker? They void more than 1,900 payments under the IFMI system. How can you void government payments 1,600 times? It means you are stealing. And then, Mr. Speaker, the EACC, which is the institution that is supposed to manage our bad manners and the stealing we are doing, they are all compromised, and they keep complaining that I'm hitting at them. I hope the new director who comes is going to pick up his bootstraps and do something, because, Mr. Speaker, our country is hemorrhaging. Governors need to know we are their friends. We are willing to add them more money. Members of Parliament must understand we don't want to take their kitties, but we are behaving badly. We are misspending state money. We are misspending the resources which need to help our most vulnerable people, and we are behaving as if nothing is happening. Mr. Speaker, we have the capacity, but we refuse to accept our capabilities. I want to say that I hope that we will bring legislation with some of you members who have really been wonderful, so that we can close the loopholes where this money is being stolen from and where it's stolen through. And Mr. Speaker, I listened to the presidential speech the other day. How I wish he would have said we have at least 20 names of individuals that have already been arrested or we are arresting, because they have stolen tons of money from our poor people. But we never listen to that, because it's not important. We only react when the Gen Zs get to the streets. And we are saying, Mr. Speaker, like me, I am not anti-government. All these guys in government are my friends. We just want them to govern well. We want the governors to govern well. We want the people running football in Kenya to govern it well. We want people who are running Nairobi County to govern it well. That is all we want, Mr. Speaker. And I say thank you for giving me time to speak about this matter.
On my screen, I can see some of the senators who contributed in the morning, like Senator Chalagay. Did you contribute? You are? Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed?
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika mimi kunipa fursa hii pia kuongeza kauli yangu kuunga mkono ripoti ya uwiano kuhusiana na sheria ya ugawaji wa pesa. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii ni mara ya pili tumeweza kuleta ripoti ya uwiano kuhusiana na masuala ya sheria ya ugawaji wa pesa kati ya serikali kuu na serikali za kaunti. Hapo awali Mheshimiwa Spika, tulileta uwiano ambapo tulikubaliana kwamba pesa ambazo zinastahili kwenda kwa kaunti ni shilingi bilioni 400.1. Mheshimiwa Spika, ripoti pia imesema kuwa tumeweza kukubaliana kwamba shilingi bilioni 387 ziende katika kaunti zetu. Na hii ilitokamana kwa sababu mswada wa fedha mwaka Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna masuala ya Lamu hapa na sijui kama yahusiana na Senate ama
Okay. Lea umalizie.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Ilikuwa Lamu inachamka hapa. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwa pesa zimepunguzwa tena mpaka shilingi bilioni 387 kwa sababu ya kuondolewa kwa mswada wa fedha wa mwaka 2024 kutokana na maandamano ya Gen Z na mambo mengine. Mheshimiwa Spika, la msingi hapa ni kwa lazima pia akaunti zetu zijue kwamba fedha kutoka kwa serikali zinakwenda zikipungua. Japokuwa fedha zinaongezeka kwa kiwango, kwa mfano tumeongeza mwaka huu bilioni 2, lakini tukiangalia katika masuala ya asilimia, zile pesa ambazo zilitoka katika serikali kuu kuja kwa kaunti mwaka 2013 mpaka sasa zinateremka chini. Hii ya sasa nafikiri ni asilimia 13 ama 15 ambaye zile pesa ambazo kutoka mwanzo ziliweza kutolewa. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja ya kaunti zetu kujaribu kuingia mifukoni wao wenyewe, waokote zile pesa ambazo natakana kuokota. Kama ni masuala ya kuleta mifumo ya kiteknolojia ya kuweza kukusanya pesa, ifanyike hivyo, ili pesa zinazokusanywa katika kaunti, Mheshimiwa Spika, ziwe zinajulikana na vile vile pia zinatumika kwa yale matumizi ambayo yatasaidia maendeleo katika kaunti zetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, haiwezekani mpaka hivi sasa kaunti nyingine bado zinaokota pesa kwa mkono. Mtu anatoka asubuhi na vitabu 10 akiregesha labda vitabu 2, pesa ambazo amekusanya hazijulikani na wala hazifanyiwi hisabu na haziingii katika hesabu za auditor mwisho wa mwaka. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima katika ile tunaita on source revenue, kaunti zetu lazima zijitahidi ili ziweze kukusanya hizi pesa. Tukiangalia kama kaunti ya Nairobi, Mheshimiwa Spika, yatarajiwa kukusanya zaidi ya bilioni 60, lakini mpaka sasa wako katika bilioni 12, 13. Mombasa wana uwezo wa kukusanya bilioni 10, lakini mpaka sasa tuko katika bilioni 5, nusu ya uwezo wake, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo ipo haja, Mheshimiwa Spika, kaunti zetu sio kila mwaka wapige kelele pesa zinazokuja kutoka serikali kuu ni kidogo. Wao wenyewe wanafanya nini katika kukusanya hizi fedha? Hizi pesa zikishafika kwao wanafanya nini kuleta maendeleo, Mheshimiwa Spika? Tukiangalia hospitali hazina madaktari wa kutosha, wafanyaji kazi wa kutosha, katika masoko pia hakuna. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni lazima kaunti zetu pia zijitahidi, isiwe kwamba lawama kila siku zinakwenda kwa serikali. Ndio lazima tulaumu serikali kuu kwa sababu wao ndio wenye mfuko mkubwa, lakini kaunti zetu pia lazima zijitahidi. Kwa hiyo mengi, Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono ripoti hii.
Thank you, Senator Faki. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from the Unite Parliamentary Networks for Global Health and UNITAD. The delegation is taking a courtesy call to the Senate to discuss how Unite can continue to collaborate with and support Kenyan legislators as global champions. Honorable Senators, I request that each member of the delegation rises when called so that they may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. 1, Ambassador Gunnar Andreas Holm, Norwegian Ambassador to Kenya. Mr. Abdukalim Ibrahim, Africa Regional Coordinator, United Parliamentarians Network for Global Health. Mr. Cynthia Oliveira Dantas, Partnerships and Resource Mobilization Officer, UNITAD. Mr. Matthew Black, Country Engagement Manager, UNITAD. Mr. Chikosa Ngwila, Program Officer, UNITAD. Mr. Rui Dagama, Interim Board Member. Honorable Ndenita Gati, former member, National Assembly of Kenya. Oh, yeah. Ndenita, I served with her in the tour of the parliament. Karibu Senate. Honorable Sivinog Stentrand, Member of Parliament, Norway. Honorable Federica Onoli, Member of Parliament, Italy. And Honorable Jean Francois Baye, former Member of Parliament, France. And this great team is accompanied by partners of United Parliamentary Networks from Global Health and UNTAD, who are actually 13 numbers. We recognize your presence in the Senate. So, honorable senators, on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation and wish them a productive visit and fruitful discussions on the vital work of advancing global health, particularly in collaboration with the Kenyan lawmakers. I thank you. I want to invite Senator Sifuna Edwin in a minute or so to welcome the visitors. And then
Honorable Speaker, thank you.
Senator Minda Kibuano is a member of the team.
Thank you. Members of this House should always allow us to provide important context. So when I point out that the Honorable Denita Gatti was nominated by ODM, it is not something that should be frowned upon. This is information that should help you, and we are very proud of her work. It's not about division. It's as SG of ODM, surely, Speaker, I'm allowed to take pride in my membership and the work that they're doing. So, Honorable Speaker,
No, I'll give you.
On behalf of the minority side that sit on your right as a delegation, I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you into this House. As you can probably tell, there are a few hecklers around and we have to contend with them, but we will do our best to be able to express ourselves when we are standing here. It is a very difficult environment. I am being alerted, Honorable Speaker, to the presence of the Honorable Mark Nyamita, the Member of Parliament for Uriri, elected on ODM party. So, Honorable Chair, when I bring up these facts, it's not to despise anybody. Everybody should be proud of their political parties. If you're having wrangles in your home, don't begrudge us who are happy in our house, Honorable Speaker. So I take this opportunity to welcome you.
Welcome the guests, and that will be enough.
I take this opportunity to welcome the entire delegation to this House, and I am sure that the members that I have mentioned, specifically the two members, Honorable Denita and Honorable Mark Nyamita, will be able to treat the members of the entire delegation in the fashion in which we have directed as a party when we are hosting guests. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Minda Kibuano.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I'm going to echo my SG. I want to appreciate, Mr. Speaker, for you to formally at least invite Unite team. I am a proud member of Unite Health team, and I sit on the steering committee. Mr. Speaker, just give me a second for me to highlight on what Unite focuses on. The key focus areas include universal health care, the intersection of public health and human rights, gender equity in health, and sustainable responses of emerging health crises. Unite are policymakers, academics, and civil society. Unite amplifies voice of parliamentarians to advance global health and ensures inclusive, effective governance, Mr. Speaker. And one of the Unite's meaningful step is to strengthen partnership across the region. Notably, the chapter initiated a collaboration with the University of Health and Allied Science in Ghana, and right now they're in Kenya trying to collaborate and work with us to develop an academic program and also global campaigns and public health awareness, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to thank Abdul Karim Ibrahim, who is the African Regional Unite Parliamentarians Network, for bringing us together. I was actually appointed. I was only done an interview, and within one day, I was already sitting in the steering committee of the Unite. I take my pride. Unite has taken me places, has initiated for me to go to different countries. The other day, I was appointed to go to Berlin to sit as a panelist in in one of the health, it was, seriously, I can't remember. That was during the time that we were going through impeachment, so I was unable to attend. But I take pride and I welcome them. I welcome also the members of parliament from different countries. I tell them Kenya is a beautiful country, and as much as you may see our debate here, they are quite healthy, and at the end of the day, we remain very good friends from both opposition and government side. So I really want to welcome you, and I say I'm sure you have enjoyed and, of course, benchmarked all the other places that you have been to, Makueni, Kenyatta Hospital, and the rest of the place. Now I know you're going to the National Assembly, but I want to tell you that Kenya is the place to be, and Kenya is a country to engage with. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will also give the majority leader a minute also to welcome this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now that is a welcoming remark. You know, Speaker, as a father of this House, you should know the trade of all your children. There are some for welcoming guests and there are others for other duties. Senator Sifuna is for other duties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in welcoming this gracious team. I have listened to the resume of the work that they do, and I am particularly impressed in their pursuit of global health, Mr. Speaker, particularly at this time in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, where we are having a conversation about UHC, Universal Health Cover, and it will be important to listen to them on their conversations of what Kenya can actually do better. This is in the second month of the rollout of UHC. After this House, Mr. Speaker, passed 4 signature bills that have anchored perhaps the most consequential national program to ever been rolled out since Kenya became a republic. This is his second month, Mr. Speaker. And of course, like any new venture, we are experiencing, Mr. Speaker, challenges left, right, and center, but there are good stories to write home about. I want to believe, Mr. Speaker, that from their visit to our various hospitals, particularly Kenyatta National Hospitals, there are many things that they have pointed out and would wish that either as a government or as a people of Kenya, we could do better. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, it will be good to hear from them because they sit at the global level. What are their perspectives in comparison to other jurisdictions globally, especially countries that have tried to roll out UHC, Mr. Speaker? What is it that what are the lessons that have been learned, and what is a place in which Kenya can ensure that this program actually succeeds, because it will be life-changing to the ordinary citizens, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I hope that, because I've heard from Senator Hamida that after this they are going to the National Assembly, should an opportunity be granted, will be good to listen to them, particularly our own members who serve in the Health Committee. I know the chairperson of Health Committee is with us, so that as they provide oversight, they could benefit from that perspective of these friends of ours. I do welcome them, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader. And the team is also, we have 2 members from our sister house, Honorable Mark Nyamita. I want to recognize our presence, and Honorable Daniel Molokere, member of National Assembly. I don't know whether he's also around. After Majority Leader, at 4 p.m., I'll be receiving this delegation on behalf of the Speaker of the Senate. And I really want to welcome the Senate Committee, Standing Committee on Health, so that they can accompany me in that discussion, so that we can see what the best we can tap from the knowledge. So the chair is not here, but I saw the vice chair. So Senator Homal, kindly join in room 4, committee room 4 upstairs, for that meeting at 4 p.m. Now we go to Senator Abbas Sheikh Mohammed. We are back to the motion. You want to contribute? Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also want to join my colleagues to support the DORA bill, the division of revenue. Honorable Speaker, I want first to commend the Committee of Mediation for the good work they have done. However, I have concerns that, Honorable Speaker, we expected more money than what we have been given. The 2 billion shillings actually is not enough to take care of the county's interest, because at most they will get something like for 2 million shillings each. And there's so much to, this country, the larger population is actually the counties. Most of the Kenyans are receiving services from the counties. What we have at the national level is actually policy issues. But of course, the actual work, all the social economic issues are supposed to take place in the counties. And the way the counties actually funds is being treated is actually so, been very hurting. That every time when there's a budget to be made, there is issues of mediations and all these things. And I think we need to look into this issue and look into the bills, the acts that governs these issues, and this should be done once and for all. I also suggest that all funds, all preparation of budget bills, the making of the county bills, the county financial issues shall first come through the Senate. And it's only after that that we can be able to take these things to the National Assembly so that they can be able to allocate the necessary bills. Honorable Speaker, this business of delaying the appropriation of the bills, the approval of the bills of finance is actually causing a lot of delay. Counties are paying a lot of wage bills. They are paying for services, medical services, issues. They are paying for other services like water. And the more we keep delaying, the counties actually are incurring a lot of a lot of pending bills. And they have inherited already some pending bills that need to be paid. Some of them actually have been taken to court of late. One other thing is actually we need to be strictly following the law. That the 15%, every time the counties are not even getting the 15%, they get less than the 15%. Honorable Speaker, one other thing is that despite the seepage taking place in the counties, the corruption in the counties is not only in the counties. Corruption is actually everywhere in this country. In every institution, corruption is there. So it's a high time that we shall be able to institute a very serious measures against the corrupt people who are actually trying to steal money, steal properties of public properties, and therefore it's always I hear, the county has a lot of corruption, but the corruption has emanated from high levels, and therefore the best thing is, and I said many times, we need to strengthen our institutions to oversight. For the other institutions like the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Senate, and the DPP, the OPP, the DICs, these people should be strengthened. So at least they will be able to cap this business of stealing money left and right. One other thing, Honorable Speaker, I think the Senate should also take its own responsibilities to do a proper oversight. But the problem is that you bring somebody, a governor, to bring the committees, the money is not even adding up. But honestly, from there, the Senate has no authority. And therefore, I think we need also to review those oversight roles for the Senate. With those few remarks, I support the bill, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Julius Mulgo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also add my voice to those of my colleagues. This issue of division of revenue is something that is a big debate between the houses, and big debate in the minds of many because of what they see happening on the ground. Stealing is rather very rampant and very open these days in the counties, making devolution be on a questionable state in the minds of many, because the expectation that the citizens have or had on devolution, knowing that money is coming to the counties from the national treasury, and also collection of revenue in addition to the national funding would really be something that would change a lot of situations on the ground. But stealing or corruption that is practiced by governors and those operatives in the counties are just making it, putting devolution in such a state that is being questioned a lot. And now, a lot of empowering of personal friends, empowering of relatives into the cake of the county is very open and rampant, such that even the citizens and the county people are just losing hope, and they're just looking at it as being the business of the governor and his people. And then there is also a lot of biasness in employment and placements that is being practiced by government, such that the citizens in counties are losing hope because it is like this is a private company by government, and therefore the citizens are kind of losing hope, and the expectations that they had are really being discouraged, and they are losing a lot of faith in the governor and team that is in the county. And then also, when it comes to companies that are working on roads and in buildings and many other activities that are going on in the counties, you find that the governors are paying companies that are associated to them, either companies of relatives or their own companies, that they register in names that are not obviously showing that they are the owners or the ones running them. And those companies become the ones that are priority when it comes to payments. They first pay themselves. And they are not few companies. They are not one or two or three. They are 20s and 50s and 100s and even up to 300 for some of the places. And so this just drains whatever money that there is for bills that are supposed to be paid and spread to other companies, so that there is spreading of money and there is also circulation of money among other companies, and therefore, at the end of the day, among many other maybe people that run businesses here and there, because if the money is spread, everybody will benefit. There will be people that will buy vegetable, there will be people that will buy sugar, there will be people that will pay others for working on their lands and working on their settings here and there. And therefore, a county becomes a county that, money is spreading to everybody. But this is not happening because companies are just made, or payments are made to those companies. that are associated with the governors. And also running counties like it is their own private companies, because people are just intimidated so that the governor is not criticized, or those who are working with the governor become lords and become people that are pushing authority over the people, and the people are cowed because this is a person that is working with the governor, and this is the governor, and therefore they just make the governing of the county become like a private company that belongs to an individual or certain individual, and therefore become untouchable. Revenue collection is also not up to where it's supposed to be in most of our counties, because there is a lot of stealing. If the boss is stealing, and those who are collecting the revenue know that this belongs to the boss, and therefore they will go ahead and help themselves and steal from the first stage of collection, and therefore at the end of the day everybody will steal it because they have seen the governor stealing it. So that leaves development in a devastating situation. You talk of roads that are impassable in most of the places, and you talk of health that is really frustrated. The doctors and the nurses and everybody that is supposed to be working and contributing to well-running of health facilities and health activities are just disappointed, they are discouraged and demoralized. So that brings down the levels of services of health, and therefore a lot of people are losing lives, and situations that would be helped health-wise are just running out of hand because the governors are not running the hospitals like they should, so that it helps the people. And then also something that governors are running away, or counties are running away from ECDE, which is devolved, and it is the work of the governors, but they are making them or treating them like they don't belong there. They're just like orphans in somebody's home whose children are there, and therefore looking at these orphans with an unfair eye. And so ECDE really don't know where they belong. They don't know where they are supposed to be because the governors are not treating them with regard, with the treatment they should be receiving, because that is where they belong. And therefore, something really needs to happen so that the counties are made to be responsible for ECDE. And then governors allege that they are not paid, there is no funding. That may be true in some of the months, but not all the months, because the CS Finance reported recently that funding has come up to October, and therefore what is owed to the counties is this month of November. And therefore there should be change, there should be movements because funding is already there or has been happening, and therefore activities that are supposed to be on and active should be on, but the government are in denial. But as they do that, they are busy building and buying. for their own selves. And those of their people, relatives, and so on are busy buying and building houses and homes. So you find that the towns that are near where the governors are, a lot of activities for the governor are going on. Like the governor of Machakos is busy in Nairobi or in Mombasa. The one of Mombasa is busy somewhere, building somewhere and buying land, and yet they are telling the citizens and everybody else that there is no money, there is no funding coming to them. So our position as senators of oversight should really be strengthened, and that is needing funding so that we are actively doing our work of oversight. And then something should be done about even these people of EACC, because some of the agents sent to counties are busy collecting money, because these governors and their people are bribing EACC people, and therefore they're just busy because these days they carry money, cash in their vehicles to give to these guys. So as they chase them around, they're just busy collecting money. And therefore, auditing reports should be strengthened very much, and people should go to jails so that it becomes a lesson to the others. I support.
Senator David Wakoli.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa nafasi hii kuchangia kuhusiana na mkataba ama makubaliano kati ya jumba la Senate na jumba la kitaifa la wabunge, hususan mgao wa fedha ambao unaenda kuafiki maendeleo katika nchi ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, siku zilizopita maseneta wamekuwa wakijihusisha na mchakato wa kutia kwenye mizani utekelezaji wa kazi ama maendeleo katika kaunti mbalimbali katika kamati mbalimbali. Na baadhi ya magavana waliokuwa wanakuja, wengine walikuwa wangwana wakikubali makosa, wengine wakikana makosa, na sisi tukiwakosoa. Fauka hayo, kuna wale ambao walikuwa wana viburi, wana vichwa butu, ambao walikuwa wanadhani na wanasema kwamba hakuna chochote ambacho jumba la Senate linawasaidia. Lakini nashukuru maseneta ambao walisimama kidete na kusema kwamba fedha zinazoenda katika kaunti zetu zisipungue chini ya bilioni 400. Na shinikizo ama ukosefu wa pesa katika kaunti uliwalazimu magavana kukubali kwamba jumba la Senate lipo na litakuwepo na litaendelea kuwepo, kutetea fedha zinazoenda katika kaunti na vile vile kuchunga maslahi ya kaunti zetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, linalosababisha ninyanyuke na kutoa hoja zangu ni kwamba kaunti ya Bungoma ni mojawapo ya kaunti ambazo zimekuwa na fedha chache, na gavana amekuwa anasema kwamba hana fedha za kutekeleza miradi ya maendeleo. Ni sawa, lakini fedha sasa tumemaliza shida iliyokuwepo ya kukubaliana. Mimi nataraji kwamba katika mashinani kule Bungoma, maeneo ya mazoezi ya wanariadha kule Mlima Elgon itakamilika. Mheshimiwa Spika, imechukua zaidi ya miaka 10 eneo hilo kujengwa, na fedha ambazo Bungoma imepata kufikia sasa ni zaidi ya bilioni 36. Mheshimiwa Spika, kile jumba la Senate linapaswa kujiuliza, miradi ambayo magavana wanajihusisha nayo ni miradi ambayo wanaweza kumaliza katika awamu yao ya uongozi, ama ni miradi ambayo kwayo watapata kipato cha kiuna mgongo na waachie magavana wanaokuja shida na madeni jinsi tunaona katika Kenya hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia katika sekta ya afya, Mheshimiwa Spika, kule Bungoma hospitali hazina madawa, kule Bungoma kuna hospitali miundombinu na mijengo haijakabilika, na ni mijengo ambayo imesambazwa ama imepokewa kutoka kwa magavana waliokuwepo. Kile tunadai sasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kuona magavana wakijenga na kukamilisha miradi ya maendeleo ambayo ipo sasa. Hatutaki kuona magofu ya miradi katika kaunti zetu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Sekta ya ukulima, Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile imeathirika pakubwa na utepetevu wa baadhi ya mawaziri na magavana katika Kenya hii. Kile tunasema, pesa tumekubaliana, tunawapa, lakini uwajibikaji ni lazima udhihirike na uonekane kadamnasi ya umma, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimekubali kwamba yale walikubaliana bunge la Senate na la kitaifa. Sekta ya barabara, Mheshimiwa Spika, nimeleta hoja katika kamati ya barabara na miundo msingi, Mheshimiwa Spika, sasa miezi 6-7, Mheshimiwa Spika. Juzi watu Bungoma wamedai kuna barabara ya foleni 2-3 ambayo imejengwa na baadhi ya maseneta wanajua. Fedha zimetoka katika awamu iliyopita. Badala ya kumaliza barabara, Mheshimiwa Spika, wamechukua rangi, wameanza kupaka barabara. Mimi naomba kamati ambazo zipo hapa zisiwe kamati za kuimbia magavana nyimbo kama watoto wa chekechea. Lazima magavana wajibike na kazi ionekane imetendeka na malipo yanayotolewa yaonekane yametolewa kwa haki, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi nataraji kwamba tunaposonga mbele, Mheshimiwa Spika, tutaweza kupewa nguvu na uwezo unaostahili, kwa sababu hata sisi maseneta tumekuwa kama makachero katika benki kuu ya nchi ya Kenya, ambao kile tunacho ni Biblia na rozari, Mheshimiwa Spika. Tukiwaona wezi, Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kama Mungu alipanga iwe na iwe. Mheshimiwa, hafla kama hiyo ama maombi kama haya hayapaswi kuwa ya maseneta, Mheshimiwa Spika. Sisi inatakana tukiona mwizi, tukiona nia yake, tunapambana naye mapema, Mheshimiwa Spika. Sasa mimi naomba kwamba tunapomaliza mchakato huu, fedha ziende sambamba katika kaunti zetu, na sisi tuandame hizo fedha, tuhakikishe zinafanya kazi, tuhakikishe magavana wanafanya kazi, tuhakikishe wanakandarasi mashinani wanapewa nafasi, tuhakikishe watoto wetu wanapewa kazi pasipo kubaguliwa jinsi inaonekana, Mheshimiwa Spika. Nataka tunapoenda msimu wa Krismasi tuone mabadiliko. Tuone Kenya ina msisimko mpya na ari mpya, kwamba hatutakuwa na utamaushi, bali tutakuwa na maono, tutakuwa na nishati na vision nzuri ambayo itatusukuma kwa mwaka unaokuja na mwaka ambao tutakuwa na mapenzi, tutakuwa na umoja na mustakabali wa nchi ya Kenya. Asante, Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono matokeo ama makubaliano ya kamati zote za bunge la Senate na bunge la kitaifa. Asante sana.
Senator Dulo Aldan Fatuma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this report, although with a very heavy heart. And why I'm saying this is because of what I see in my county and many other counties are doing in the committees I sit. Mr. Speaker, we sit here every year. We fight for counties to get budget allocation. And I have been in this house, this is my 3rd time. Some of the senators who have passed through this house, they are those who have even sacrificed their lives in the last Senate, where they have been threatened by the government, where they have been arrested just simply because of supporting a certain position in the House as far as a 3rd generation formula is concerned. Mr. Speaker, according to what I'm seeing in my county, it's like Kenyans don't know the role of senators. Because when you comment or maybe carry out your oversight, people ask you, what have you put on the table as far as development is concerned? Why have you not given us bursaries? And yet, we sit in this house, fight with national government, fight with National Assembly, fight with CRA to make sure that counties get budget allocation. And I think Senate needs to have a lot of sensitization as far as our role is concerned in many counties, because they don't seem to understand why they have elected their senators. Mr. Speaker, why I'm saying I'm actually I'm supporting this motion with a heavy heart is because of the kind of practice I'm seeing in my county. And even before this House, Mr. Speaker, we push for money, governors refuse accountability. They don't want to be held accountable. And yet, when this money gets delayed, they are the ones shouting on top of their voices that there is no money, oh, there is no that, oh, we cannot be able to run our activities. And when they have the money, they don't even carry out those activities. Mr. Speaker, I have actually really wondered why Senate is there. Because we have a rogue governor in our county who has refused to appear before certain committees of the House, who refuses to honor summonses, who cherry picks which committee he should appear before and which committee he doesn't appear before. He has actually taken 2 committees of the House to court to refuse accountability. And you will wonder, he's the one who will sit or maybe shout in the county that he has not received budget. Mr. Speaker, we have institutions apart from Senate that is supposed to hold these governors accountable. But they are not doing what they are required to do by law. Mr. Speaker, as far as Governor for Isiolo is concerned, we need direction from your chair, because there is no way that he will appear before Cohesion Committee and refuses to appear before Committee of Health, and he takes them to court. That is abuse of this particular House. He will appear before a certain committee and disparage other committees, because when he appeared before Cohesion, he actually praised the committee and said, this is the best committee of this House. And the rest are not committees that he should appear before. If I may go to health, Mr. Speaker, most of our hospitals, they don't have drugs. Completely. I have had my morgue in my county that has not been working for the last 2 years, Mr. Speaker. I bring a statement to the floor of the House. It goes to the committee. The governor refuses to appear. He refuses to honor summon. Warrant of arrest is issued. He rushes to court to block it. Where are Kenyans going to go when such things happen? We must have a solution to it. We cannot just sit here and pass budget when people refuse accountability. We cannot sit here, and I think some of our colleagues, we must hold them accountable, because there are some of them who are entertaining these governors who are wrong. And when they are abusing senators, they are abusing the whole Senate, not individuals, Mr. Speaker. Look at the area of roads. There are no roads. The other day in my county, people are unable to bury the dead one because the roads are not there. They're not passable. Counties don't have qualified individuals who can actually supervise and monitor those roads. Money is dished out to individuals who are politically correct. And yet the roads are not done, Mr. Speaker. In their reports, they will say that we have done ABCD roads. And when you go on the ground, those roads are not there. What is the role of the Auditor General? What is the role of other institutions? Those are questions we need to ask ourselves. I mean, really, this is 21st century. We always keep on crying, this is not happening, that is not happening. Water, a lot of money is allocated. But you will find that in some areas where I come from, our mothers are still carrying jerrycans on their back 400 kilometers with their donkeys. They can stay even for 2 days without water. And yet there is budget allocated, Mr. Speaker. There are some who do even double allocation on budget where donors have actually sunk boreholes or provided water. And nobody is holding them accountable, Mr. Speaker. Revenue. You will see, Mr. Speaker, most of the counties, they are still on manual. Intentionally, governors have refused to have automated their revenue. It's going into people's pocket. We cry here, we don't have money. We fight with National Assembly every time that they should increase budget allocation when county is refusing to automate their revenue collection. And that is what should have actually supplemented the national budget allocation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are counties where you can imagine wage bill. For a county like Isiolo, the wage bill is at 50 right now, and they keep on actually recruiting people. Mr. Speaker, it's very sad when a county submits a report that is doctored, that is tampered with before a committee, and the committee sits there and praises that particular report. Isiolo County Governor recruited 42 advisors. When I appeared before the Committee of Cohesion, Mr. Speaker, you can imagine he redesignated them, he backdated the dates of their appointment, he backdated the date of their birth, and I have that copy of that report which I can table before this House, Mr. Speaker. And we have institutions that can countercheck that. Somebody who has been appointed as an advisor, who has never been to school, he's earning a salary of 200,000. He has only an ID to himself, Mr. Speaker. Yet we have our kids who are graduate, who are PhD holders, who are master's holders, jobless. And that one salary that is given to one individual who has retired, Mr. Speaker, could have employed 2, 3 graduates in our counties, Mr. Speaker. And somebody has audacity to say that I know everybody in this government and nobody will take me anywhere. Very sad. We have individuals recruited in Isiolo County as far as from Mombasa running their businesses. In all the counties, you will see over 80 staff who are ghost workers, Mr. Speaker. And I can provide the list on the table of the Senate. And nobody is taking action, Mr. Speaker. The law says wage bill should not go above 35%. No county in this country, Mr. Speaker, today has wage bill that is below or is 35. No county, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me not pour a lot of the challenges I face in my county and many counties that I've actually seen, because you will see even the Auditor General's report. In some of the counties, Auditor General report does not capture development projects where millions and billions are losing, Mr. Speaker. We're losing a lot of money. The report of Auditor General will cover allocation to COG, allocation to CAF. When you can imagine, if you check a particular county, they are losing a lot of money, Mr. Speaker. We have projects that have stalled. Nobody is holding those governors accountable for those projects. National government projects are also, some of them, they have stalled. Sometimes nobody even knows what is happening with those projects. We must put our acts together, Mr. Speaker. ECD is a responsibility of county government, Mr. Speaker. This afternoon, there was a teacher from Isiolo who called me, and she told me, in their pay slip, they are being called clerical officers when they are teachers. Mr. Speaker, the title they are given by the county is they are clerical officers. Their salary is actually, the NHIF is deducted, loan is deducted, the subscription to certain institutions are deducted, but it's not remitted. And today they cannot walk to any financial institutions to get any loan. Some of them, their facilities, or rather their properties, are auctioned, Mr. Speaker. We keep on recruiting ECD teachers just to satisfy our political ambitions. And the teachers don't even have classes. I know there are so many schools in my county where kids are still learning under trees. This century, trees, where a classroom can be built even with 1.5 million. When a county like Isiolo is actually receiving 5.6 billion almost per year. It's very sad. The school feeding program that is allocated to them is supplemented for something else. And these are kids who cannot afford even one meal in their homes. And that is the purpose of school feeding program, where they encourage those kids to come to schools. Mr. Speaker, counties are supposed to establish legislations that govern certain funds, PWD funds, youth funds, and women funds. Most of those counties, they have not actually operationalized those funds. And yet, they keep on utilizing money for those purposes, and nobody is holding them accountable. Like for Northern Kenya, a lot of money is spent under emergency and special program, Mr. Speaker. Millions and millions of money in the name of drought, in the name of emergency, and that money is not helping anybody. If there is a drought, maybe they provide 1 or 2 lorries of maize meal. That will cost 200, 300 million. Nobody looks into it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to bring on board those institutions that are supposed to hold those governors or the counties accountable. It's unacceptable. This is almost 13 years in devolution. We have nothing to show for. And some of the counties, I think we are better off when we were in the national government or under the national government, Mr. Speaker. I will support because of the interest of my people, but if it were for these governors who are actually playing rogue, corrupt, I would not have supported. I thank you.
Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's gallery this afternoon, 8 officers from the county assemblies of Wajir and Garissa. The officers are undertaking a capacity building program on coaching and mentoring in leadership at the Center of Parliamentary Studies, CPST, County House Campus. Honorable Senators, on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome and wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. Senator Mungatana. And 1 minute to welcome the visitors from Garissa and Wajir counties.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to welcome the visitors. Mr. Speaker, I want to particularly welcome the visitors from Garissa, who are our good neighbors on the other side of the county of Tana River. We also welcome the other visitors who have come. Mr. Speaker, I know that when they go to the CPST, they learn a lot. There's a lot of capacity building in that college. And we believe, Mr. Speaker, that the time that they will spend here in Nairobi with us, they will come back better leaders and more equipped to serve the specific counties where they come from. Mr. Speaker, I welcome them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So we are back to the motion, last but not the least, Senator Wambua Enoch.
So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity to also add my voice to the report of the Mediation Committee. As a Speaker, I have followed very keenly on contributions that have been made by my colleagues. I've also taken time to peruse the report. Speaker, it is true that we are living in difficult times economically. That we must acknowledge, all of us. And that, as a Speaker, it is also true that our counties are seriously suffering. That there are services that have been rendered in counties and for which there is no money to pay. Business people, Mr. Speaker, in the counties are counting their losses. Employees, staff in the counties are also suffering. Some counties, Mr. Speaker, have actually almost ground to a halt. And so, Mr. Speaker, it is in the context of that background that we are debating this recommendation by the Mediation Committee to agree on a figure that, in the wisdom of the committee, because we gave the committee the mandate, then the figure, in their own wisdom, then is reasonable. Mr. Speaker, allow me to say a few things before I make a declaration on my position on whether I'll support or I don't support. One, Speaker, as we debate this report, it shall be remembered that our counties, most of them, have actually come under the capture of sitting governors. That governors have actually become the stumbling block for success and progress in their own devolved units. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because having listened carefully to what almost every senator said, there is a common denominator when it comes to the behavior and accountability of a majority of the governors in this country. So, Speaker, it should be remembered, and this is for members to take note, that in fact it is the business of Parliament to share revenue amongst the two levels of government, the national government and the county governments. And that, Mr. Speaker, that the decision of Parliament on how that money is shared must never be influenced by the plans of the national government, the aspirations of the national government. It must be a very objective decision made by Parliament, because both governments belong to this country. I want to say two things, Mr. Speaker, about the utilization of this money that we want to devolve to our counties, especially in the health sector. We all agree that health is a devolved function. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't know of any county, and I stand to be corrected, Mr. Speaker, I don't know of any county that can stand here and say that their health sector is in good shape. I don't know of any county. At least I can speak for my county. I can speak for counties in my region. Speaker, health has become a major, major challenge to counties and county governments. From basic lack of infrastructure, even for health facilities, to drugs, to equipment, to personnel. Mr. Speaker, I will be recommending, as a Senator of Kitui, that there will be need for a national conversation around the mess in the health sector. I say that, Mr. Speaker, because everybody aspires to achieve UHC, universal health coverage. And it's a beautiful thing. Everybody wants us to get there. But, Mr. Speaker, truth be told, if we don't fix the basics, then this talk about UHC is just empty talk. We must have the courage, Mr. Speaker, to ask ourselves what exactly is the problem with our health sector in all counties in this country, and even at the national level. The Speaker, access to affordable health care, to me, where I sit, is actually a basic human right. A right that must be afforded every Kenyan in every corner of this country. And so, Mr. Speaker, even as we debate the money that we are going to be devolving to our counties, it will be important to also, as a Senate, and as individual senators, to scrutinize the percentage of county budgets that goes into healthcare. And do this in liaison with our respective county assemblies. The Speaker, this is important, and I was having a conversation with a neighboring county to Kitui, and the governor from that county said something that was very, very profound, Mr. Speaker. That if healthcare collapses in one county, then the ripple effect is felt in all the other frontline counties. Because the Speaker, you know, you and I share a border. If Meru health sector is dysfunctional, then the effects of that dysfunction will be felt in Tharaka Nithi, it will be felt in Kitui, it will be felt in Embu. The Speaker, concerted efforts must be made to ensure the success of the health sector in our counties. And there is no magic to it, Mr. Speaker. The only way of doing this is to make sure that governors and their governments allocate sufficient resources, and those resources are properly used to roll out programs in the health sector. The Speaker, the other matter that I want to talk about is just a general pilferage of resources, county resources. The outright disregard to accounting procedures in most of our counties. The Speaker, I have had a senator here lamenting twice, but maybe 3 times, that their governor or their government caused to be voided if mistransactions 1,600 times. Mr. Speaker, you know some things the Speaker says, some things can only happen in Kenya. How can you void if mistransactions 1,600 times and pretend that you're doing a clean job? And then the matter is taken to ESCC and other investigating agencies, and somehow a way out is found. Mr. Speaker, I come from a county in Kitui where an accountant would just sign off audit reports that they have not prepared and submit them to the Office of the Auditor General. And when mistakes and outright evidence of theft is detected, they simply say, we did not prepare those reports. Somebody else prepared, we were asked to sign, because the person who prepared is not authorized to sign. Mr. Speaker, you know, there is a casualness in handling of county resources that must be stopped. Mr. Speaker, our governors must know, if they don't know, they must know that they don't own the counties in which they serve. That they are actually just stewards of public resources. And that it is expected of them to be vigilant and act responsibly, Mr. Speaker, in the management of those resources. So, Speaker, I say this knowing pretty well that the framers of our Constitution and the concept of devolution, there was, Mr. Speaker, an intention on the part of the framers of the Constitution that, Mr. Speaker, the issue of resources is supposed to be organized in such a way that county governments must not perpetually just rely on disbursements from the national exchequer. That they should look for revenue streams within their counties without necessarily, Mr. Speaker, overburdening the local communities, but to raise sufficient funds to be able to carry out basic functions. But, Mr. Speaker, the concern that I have, and I'm very sure it is the concern of a lot of other senators here, is that instead of using own source revenue streams, Mr. Speaker, to enrich county revenue, to carry out basic county functions, a lot of these governors, Mr. Speaker, are using own source revenue streams as avenues for self-enrichment. Mr. Speaker, I come from a rain deficit region, an arid and semi-arid area, Mr. Speaker. A region that we don't grow coffee or tea or any other non-cash crop. But, Mr. Speaker, I come from a region that is rich in other resources that bring revenue to a county. We have the best river sand from the region where I come from. So, Speaker, I would dare say, though I don't have the facts, but I would dare say that perhaps a big percentage of the construction that takes place in the Nairobi City County the river sand used comes from Ukambani. And Mr. Speaker, it doesn't come cheap, it is expensive. But Mr. Speaker, governors have used river sand harvesting as a way of enriching themselves and their cronies at the expense of the communities around which the sand is harvested, at the expense, Mr. Speaker, of the county revenues of Kitui and the region. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this, that as the Bible says, the time has come and now is, Mr. Speaker. I want to say, as the Senator of Kitui County, I think that time has come. That we will no longer sit back, Mr. Speaker, and watch our resources being plundered for self-enrichment. We will not sit back, Mr. Speaker, and watch as our riverbeds, Mr. Speaker, are being turned into barren bedrocks, Mr. Speaker. We shall not watch, Mr. Speaker, and see as people neighboring rivers where the sand is being harvested are impoverished day in, day out, and some people, a few people, Mr. Speaker, are just lining their pockets. Mr. Speaker, this must stop. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of charcoal burning. Mr. Speaker, when I was growing up, we used to have significantly almost sufficient forest cover in the mountains and the hills around Kitui. Today, Mr. Speaker, much of that forest cover has been cut down completely, Mr. Speaker. People are burning charcoal and selling to urban centers. We are precipitating the process of turning our region into a desert. And the people that do this, they do it, Mr. Speaker, with their interests, purely with their interests at heart, without caring a thing about the present and future generations' ability to benefit from those resources. The Speaker, as we send money to counties for them to be able to carry out functions under devolution, this House must also expect, Mr. Speaker, that the own sales revenue generated by counties also becomes part of the resources that are used to enrich and better the lives of the people in those counties. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, governors must also become a little bit more innovative. Mr. Speaker, it is true and it is not right that every so often there are delays in the disbursements of money from the exchequer to counties. But Mr. Speaker, the other truth of the matter is that eventually, this money is disbursed to counties. And this money is disbursed into banks, commercial banks. When these commercial banks receive money for counties, Mr. Speaker, these monies are used by commercial banks, Mr. Speaker, to do some lending. Mr. Speaker, governors must also be a little bit more innovative and ensure that they get into agreements with commercial banks operating within their counties, Mr. Speaker, so that they have standing orders that on every 26th or 27th of every month, every member of staff in the counties are paid their dues, whether the money has been credited to their account or not, because eventually that money will come. And these banks, Mr. Speaker, do a lot of business, again, with county monies. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by saying that, yes, the Senate would have wanted to see 400 billion taken to counties, but now, Mr. Speaker, the available amount that the
Give him 1 minute.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But the rights were already very systematic in warning you on your timing.
Mr. Speaker, but the trail of thought was also doing other things in me. So let me just conclude by saying that, yes, Mr. Speaker, we would have wanted to see 400 billion going to counties. I see now the committee has agreed on 387 billion as equitable share and another additional 8 billion going into counties, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, because this is a mediated version of the bill, and the report requests us, Mr. Speaker, to support that money to go to counties. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I support.
You know, this screen of mine is funny. It was blank, but now it has a member by the name Otieno Moses, Senator Kajwan. You know, the mood was the mover to reply. That was the mood of the House. But maybe you raise a few minutes to give your comments on it's a very important bill for the counties.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Division of Revenue Bill is the most important financial instrument that this House considers. Every senator, if they are committed to their sense of duty, ought to have a view on the division of revenue, because this is where we are demonstrating to the people that we represent that the money that governors are using in the counties cannot pass to them without going through the Senate. Mr. Speaker, some senators in this House, I think Senator for Bungoma, has been told that he has nothing to do with the money that goes to Bungoma. It is at this point that we demonstrate that a senator, if the senator does not vote yes or no, that money will not reach Bungoma. And so, Mr. Speaker, even if the mood was for the mover to reply, I do hope that you can have a bit of elasticity so that each senator is able to explain why the amount of money their county governments base their budgets on is going to go down, and why it is likely that some hospitals are not going to have drugs, and why it is likely that some markets won't be built, roads won't be maintained, because of certain decisions that have been made here. It must be put on record, Mr. Speaker, that the first time this matter went into mediation, we were led by the senator for the great county of Meru, and who is today sitting on the chair. We had a conversation with our brothers in the lower house. We had a very scientific approach, and we were able to convince them that the right amount of money that should go to county government should not go below 400 billion. We wanted more, but we were able to convince our brothers to settle on 401 billion. And it was not voodoo, it was scientific. We could account for where every single additional shilling was going into. We were able to demonstrate that there was non-discretionary expenditure, some that was not part of the county integrated development plans over 47 counties. One such was a county aggregation and industrial parks, where each county was required to commit 250 million, and the national government would commit a similar amount. It was not the priority of all the counties. Of course, it is a very good idea, but even good ideas need to be prioritized. We had the community health professionals who had been put in place pursuant to the Primary Healthcare Act, which this House passed while sitting in Turkana. Mr. Speaker, we ended up in a situation where you had more than 100,000 community health promoters, whose salary, half would be paid by the county government and the other half by the national government. That is the most absurd arrangement I've ever seen when it comes to payment of anybody who is working for the public. Because at times,
The county has paid the 5,000, and the national government has not paid the matching 5,000. And so an old woman who's a community health promoter is unable to service her SACCO loans, is unable to take her children to school because they're still waiting for the national government to send their share of her salary. I mean, Mr. Speaker, even in our households, you can imagine if you had a situation where the gardener, half his salary was to be paid by the man and half to be paid by the wife. I am sure the wife would always pay, the man would never pay. And that is the situation our community health promoters are going through, that the county governments are paying the 5,000, but there are significant delays, and that affects delivery. As we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, the governor of Homa Bay is at a dispensary called Nyakiao Health Center. Nyakiao Health Center happens to be in my village of birth. We visited that dispensary 3 days ago, and she committed to come back today, and as we speak, she's there to launch the facility. The facility has only one nurse and one other permanent employee. The rest of the services are rendered by the community health promoters. Mr. Speaker, right now, we are enrolling people into the new Universal Health Coverage Scheme, the Social Health Insurance Fund. And one significant thing that happens when people come to these facilities is that when they are enrolling into SHA, there's a means-based testing. And this is being driven and being run by our community health promoters. How do we expect these people to be motivated, to be highly driven, if here at the Senate and at the National Assembly level, we are not granting additional money or sufficient money to be able to pay for their packs? And that is why this mediated report, Mr. Speaker, I disagree with it. You know, when you approach courts of law and when you approach instruments of justice, there is always one of two outcomes. If you go to court, you either win or you lose. At the end of the day, when you lose, you might have your reservations, but you leave that court feeling that justice has been served, even though you lost. When our mediators went into that session, I do not know how the conversations went, but Mr. Speaker, in the past mediation which you and I were part of, we were able to demonstrate why 400 billion was sufficient. I do not know what other information that came in that was new that convinced them. Perhaps it is this new English that is being bandied around called fiscal deficit. But Mr. Speaker, the law had envisaged that where there is a fiscal deficit, that would be bridged by the national government. Because the national government has got the means and instruments to go to the markets, to get additional financing, to able to cater for any deficit that there could be in public spending. The national government issues treasury bills, bonds. The national government goes for concessional and unconcessional loan. The national government, when the president is in the US, the CS Treasury takes a visit to Pennsylvania Street, to IMF and World Bank, and is able to negotiate on behalf of the people of Kenya for additional financing. County governments do not have that ability. And that is why the principle, the constitutional principle of shielding counties from these drops in fiscal deficit was put there. I do not know why we have decided to throw that principle out of the window. Mr. Speaker, even though today we are voting to give counties 387 billion, or it has been proposed to give them 387 billion, the basis of division is also the financial statements of the financial year 2021-2022, if I'm not wrong. Mr. Speaker, revenue should be divided on the basis of the most recent and the most realistic revenue forecasts. I am happy with a decision that was rendered by Justice Jairus Nga early in October. And Mr. Speaker, this matter, I will be bringing it to the floor of the House. Justice Jairus Nga made a ruling recently, and he said that constitutional timelines must be adhered to without exception. Justice Jairus Nga made reference to Article 2294 that requires the Auditor General to bring an audit report to Parliament within 6 months of the closure of a financial year. Justice Nga said that timeline is mandatory it is cast in stone, and the Auditor General must bring reports to Parliament before the 31st of December of every financial year. Justice Nga went ahead and spoke to Article 2298 of the Constitution. Article 2298 requires Parliament, upon receipt of the report of the Auditor General, to debate, consider, and take appropriate action on that report within 3 months. Justice Nga said that timeline is clearly spelled out in the Constitution. It is mandatory. It is not a suggestion. The consequence, Mr. Speaker, is that any report that is tabled before this House past 31st of December is null and void. Any report by a committee or any debate by the Senate on a matter to do with the audit reports that occurs after the expiry of 3 months is null and void. Mr. Speaker, the genesis of the matter was that the County Assembly of Nairobi indicted several officers for stealing and looting the Alcoholic Drinks Fund. For almost 3 years, they did not prepare financial statements. And as a result, the Auditor General was not able to prepare her report on time. When the Assembly eventually got to consider the report, the Assembly made recommendations that those persons be investigated and be prosecuted for causing serious financial loss to the residents of Nairobi. Those officers of the county went to court, and in court, arguments were made, and the eventual decision was that the County Assembly of Nairobi acted outside the constitutional timelines, and therefore their report was null and void. And that the Auditor General also tabled that report outside the constitutional timelines, and therefore that audit report was null and void. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine the chaos that that decision is going to render. Even us, Senator Sotsi, in my Committee of Public Accounts Committee, we are dealing with reports outside the 3-month period. The majority leader is always tabling an audit report before this House, and many of those audit reports are tabled outside the 6-month period. We must now go back and ask ourselves how we are going to fulfill those timelines. In as much as I complain, there is only one positive thing about it. Division of revenue in the subsequent year must then be based on the most recent financial statements or on the most recent revenue statements. We will no longer be saying that because the National Assembly only adopted the 2021 revenue statement, that's a basis. It will now have to be on the basis of the revenues as audited in the financial year 2023-2024. And if we use that, then automatically counties are going to get more money way above the 387 billion. That's a positive thing about that ruling, that the pot is going to be bigger, it's going to be more recent, it's going to be more up to date, and 15% out of that pot definitely will exceed this amount. So even if we are going to agree with the mediation committee on the 387 billion, if we are going to go by Justice Nga's ruling, then the next division of revenue, counties will be entitled to much more, and there'll be no stories of fiscal deficit. But there are practical complications in implementing that decision. What do you do with 10 years of audit reports that have been brought to this House outside time? What do you do with 10 years and hundreds of reports coming from our committees that have come here outside time? Mr. Speaker, we made a resolution as a committee that the Senate needs to seek a review of that decision because the window for appeal has closed. So what Justice Jairus Nga declared, we must find ways. And as chair of the Liaison Committee, you must now start asking yourself how the two committees of accountability will be able to consider all the reports within 3 months, especially when you consider that the Auditor General brings the reports on 31st of December when you're on recess, and then the 3 months start counting from that 31st of December. Mr. Speaker, we must start thinking of the practical implications of that. So even if we are going to give the counties 387, which is more or less what they got in the other financial year, it has not taken into account the inflationary aspect. Mr. Speaker, I want to give the counties hope that if we strictly adhere to the Article 229, 4 and 8, and the other various provisions of the Public Audit Act, we'll be presenting more money to counties in the future. Mr. Speaker, we have assumed that wages in county governments should be 35% and above. And the question is, what is the authority behind that? Mr. Speaker, the IMF did a study that indicates that in the most efficient municipalities and urban areas and cities, the proportion that goes to wages is 7%. And I'll be very happy to share with senators that report of the IMF. The global standard, the gold standard, when it comes to human resource and wages is 7%. We have institutionalized 35%, which is 5 times the gold standard. And in many cases, counties are at 60%. Now that counties are receiving less money, because that is a reality, even if it's cent for cent what they received last year, what they got last year compared to this year is not the same because the value, because of inflation and other factors. So in reality, counties are getting less money. We want to encourage county governments to stop this issue of hiring people who are eventually going to be your agents, who are going to be your political campaigners in the next election, that county governments must finalize that process of rationalization of the workforce so that we can release more resources to go into development. County governments must also cut down on wastage. There's a lot of wastage in counties, Mr. Speaker. As a chair of an oversight committee, it is my view that 20% of what goes to counties is wasted. Some of it wasted not in terms of theft, but wasted in terms of redundant things and activities that do not add any value to the lives of our people. Mr. Speaker, you have seen small things that translate into big things, like a small leak in a boat that can capsize it. The grandeur, the podiums, the entourage, the protocol around some of our governors, if you are going to put it all together, Mr. Speaker, it will translate into billions of shillings. What if we just became servant leaders and dropped the showbiz and dropped some of those protocol things that incur unnecessary additional resources? County governments would be able to redirect more to much more useful processes. Mr. Speaker, because we sent out our team to mediate, I will need to be convinced that this is the best outcome that we could get. Mr. Speaker, because my county of Homa Bay is bound to lose out on what had originally been promised, the county had already done a budget, and now they have to do a supplementary budget even before the first budget has been implemented. Mr. Speaker, I am generally against this decision of the mediation committee. Mr. Speaker, I will need to be convinced further, and I'm just giving notice that I do not agree with the spirit of this report. I think that the Senate got the short end of the stick because we must always look out for the interests of counties and their governments, and it was my view that 400 billion was the irreducible minimum which county governments ought to get. But the silver lining is that Justice Jairus Ngaah is the disruptor. We can blame him for giving a ruling that sounds impractical, but he has disrupted our processes. We must now make sure that within 3 months, the National Assembly has audited and has considered the revenue reports so that we can share with counties the most recent revenues as collected by the National Treasury and the other agencies without hiding behind fiscal deficit. Mr. Speaker, I disagree with this report.
Thank you, Senator. I have Senator Sotsi, I have Senator Koiti who are still queuing to speak to this particular bill. Senator Okoiti Omtata.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity to address the House. I stand to oppose the decision to reduce the amount of money going to the counties from 400 billion shillings. Counties, Mr. Speaker, are struggling. They carry a lot of work that they do, And even as we speak right now, a lot of devolved functions don't have the resources to be implemented or to be carried out. Money has remained in the national government, and yet resources have been devolved. On that premise alone, I would not be willing to touch whatever it is that has been allocated to the counties, and especially given that even the audits that are forming the basis of the allocation are dated. They are so many years behind time. So we are not even being realistic in the way we are going. Number two, I'm yet to see a formula by which DORA can be revised. And as Senator Kajwang has just observed, that a reduction to the amount of money going to counties is going to cause a difficult situation on the ground. Counties have passed budgets based on the allocations they were given, and now we want counties to go back and supplement those budgets. But even when supplementing the budgets, they have an obligation to be faithful to the law, whereby they can only supplement the budgets by not more than 10% per item. So we're inviting counties to be in a situation whereby they may have to break the law. As regards the decision of Justice Nga, which I allowed, the 3 months within which the reports of the Auditor General should be approved by Parliament are basically cast in stone unless we amend the Constitution. And I think it's time we try to have fidelity to the Constitution so that things can work like clockwork. Because this business of saying that the Constitution is being implemented piecemeal or haphazardly is the reason why this Constitution looks a bit difficult to implement. If we were faithful to the Constitution and implemented it 100%, we'd find ourselves in a situation whereby it has a working mechanism whereby none of its parts is a burden to the other. But even if you come to a situation whereby it's not properly implemented, it's like having a very, very powerful machine. Even a 2,000 monster machine. But the wheels are deflated. That machine cannot work. However hard the engine roars, it cannot work. So let us implement this Constitution fully. And I personally allowed Justice Nga for the ruling he made. It's upon us to pull up our socks. We can apply for some review to institute some structural interdicts whereby the court can maybe give us some dispensation for some time within which we can catch up. But we must focus on dealing with these audits and make sure that the audits are looked at by Parliament within time so that county governments can get their rightful share of the equitable fund. Mr. Speaker, the issues, there have been arguments that our county officials, the governors, the speakers, the clerks, members of national assemblies, the ASAs, and what have you, are misappropriating funds and therefore should not be funded. Let us not mix two things. There's law enforcement. Where they misappropriate funds, Article 226, Clause 5 of the Constitution is very clear that anybody who misuses public funds or who, under whose care public funds are lost, is liable whether they are in office or out of office. Let that be implemented, and let us not get this argument that is usually thrown up that counties are abusing the money they get. Yes, they are abusing the money they get, and the law must take its course. And that's a challenge to our law enforcement, the EACC, the DCI, the judiciary, and others. Let them step up to the plate and make sure that rogue governors, rogue speakers, and any rogue county official is held accountable for the money that the counties lose. And also going forward, Mr. Speaker, in terms of public funds utilized by counties, I think that accounting officers should be appearing before the committees of parliament, not just the governor. And the Auditor General should be ensuring that these accounting officers present their accounts by 30th of September. By end of September, they present their accounts to the Auditor General, and then by 30th of October, the CECs of Finance present their statements also to their global statements to the Auditor General. Generally, you'll find that most audit reports refer to the global report of the CEC Finance and hardly refer to any reports that were delivered by the various accounting officers of the various entities in the county governments. So maybe we should get to a point whereby it's not the governors that we put to task, only governors. We should also put to task these accounting officers to explain how they utilize public funds, so that this blame game that goes on that counties are dysfunctional and what have you do not come up. And that way, maybe the hearings before PIC and the PAC will be able to trace the money to the real people who signed off the checks, other than the person who has political responsibility, being the governor. So I would really plead that as we grill the governors, we should also be able to grill the accounting officers of the various county departments to account for how money is utilized and used. That way we shall be able to go deeper into the counties and demand accountability for cash from each department, and not just waiting for the political responsibility of the governor. Mr. Speaker, I really beg this House to reject this report so that we can go back to the position whereby we had already passed the DORA, and if there are to be any adjustments, the adjustment should come from the budget of the national government, not the budget of county governments, because it is the national government that is holding a lot of money that belongs to counties, like in agriculture. A lot of money is still being held in Nairobi. It has not followed devolved functions, and farmers are not benefiting from the promise of devolution that they would benefit from had the national government devolved the funds that go with the functions. We are having the same with the health sector. The national government continues to hang on to vital services or vital funds that should be providing services at the county level. And so it's really unacceptable that with the national government already holding money belonging to counties, we again want to say that the deficit that has occurred should be shared equally between the counties, or should be shared in some measure between the counties and some counties that are even smaller than my own Busia have allocations are very small. And then we are going again to reduce them. I plead with this House, my fellow senators, that we circle our wagons, close ranks, be bipartisan in approach, and shoot down this report and go back to the position whereby the money that was allocated to the counties